Hi, we're here with MSA presidential candidate Robert Schmidt and vice presidential candidate Kahveci. And so we're just going to jump right into the questions. So the first question is, why did you guys decide to run for the MSA presidential race?
Well, I was reading about the events of the previous election and how everything went down there, and then just kind of reading more about what MSA does and what the Senate and the President are in charge of doing, reading about the budget they control. And there was really one article that stood out to me where it said that I think it was like 28 senators had passed a budget of like $1.4 million, and just realizing like how few students are getting input on how over 20,000 students' money is spent. And that's what really motivated me to run. As I was starting to get signatures for it, the most common response I heard from people when I would tell them that, oh, I'm wanting to run for MSA president, they would say, I don't know what that is, or I don't know what that does. And to me, that's a problem. I want people to understand more about where their money goes, what their student government does, and have a more responsive, transparent student government.
Right.
Don't really have much more to add to that, but I'd say like the biggest problem for me was seeing transparency. Even like here at 3 years at Mizzou, I haven't really understood prior to running for this what MSA clearly does. And so I think it'd be important to help to educate the students on what MSA does and how it actually serves them on campus.
Okay, so with not much time left in the campaign, what type of issues or strategies do you think are most important to focus on?
Well, I think our main issue is the budget and getting more input from the student body on how that money should be spent. So I think that's certainly where we will focus our campaign, trying to get people involved, realizing that it's their money that's being spent. It should be their voice determining where it gets spent and how it gets spent.
Okay. So you said in the second debate that you didn't want to ask students for money. So why do you feel this way, and how has it impacted the way that you're able to campaign?
Well, I think certainly it's limited our ability to campaign a little bit, without near as much money as the other campaign has. We haven't made T-shirts, we haven't done a lot of stuff, but I've worked my whole way through college, and my coworkers are at the animal hospital or in the labs that I work in are in the same boat. They're kind of struggling to just get by at the end of the month, at the end of the semester, and I just didn't really feel that it was right to go to them and be like, hey, I know you guys don't have a whole lot of money, but would you be able to give me some? Because the focus is on responsibly using money, and I didn't want to be trying to get money from students who just don't have a whole lot of it.
Okay. So also going back to the second debate, you said how you used some of your personal funds. So how much of that did you use?
I think right now we're at like $50, around about there.
I think it was around $48, $49, something like that.
Oh, okay. So your platform has 4 points: increased student input, increased political involvement, promotion of healthy living, and promotion of sustainability. So why are these issues important to you?
Well, I think, just in general, those were ones that I, thought there were areas of need on campus for, and certainly the most important, or the one that we had the most focus on, was getting the increased student input on what MSA does and where it spends its money, and everything else was kind of would come second to that. But I mean, increased political involvement, I think. More and more these days, students are getting involved in politics, and I just wanted the candidates who are running for Missouri Senate, or not for Missouri Senate, but for the U.S. Senate as the Missouri Senator, to be able to come on campus, to be answerable to the student body, to a significant group in this state, and wanted the students to be able to hear, directly from the candidates. I mean, people talk about fake news that you read things that sometimes you're just like, okay, that can't even be true. Like, you can just Google that and you'll see that it's not true. And I wanted students to be able to hear directly from candidates, so that it wouldn't be someone's bias of what was said, and just have direct communication there. Promotion of healthy living. I think certainly mental illness is a problem on this campus, in this country. campuses across this country, it's an issue. And we felt like, physical health was also, those are very related, and that if you can promote better access to mental health and better access to physical health, if you can promote physical fitness, just physical health in general, you'll help make you'll help decrease mental illness, while also, if you combat the stigma, if you expand people's access, then you'll also help decrease mental illness. And then promotion of sustainability, being both science majors, we realize, the impact of global warming, of what's happening to our environment, and that if we don't change some things, that we're going to have some very drastic effects that we as a population are going to have to deal with. And we wanted the Mizzou community to try and address that by throwing away less, recycling more, and implementing more greener, sustainable practices.
Okay. And just like a little bit more on these, so like how do you actually plan to do these things? Like for the increased student input, how do you plan to have students like more involved and hear more what they have to say?
Yeah, so I'd like to send a report to the student body of where like every dollar of MSA's budget goes, where every cent that they pay into that budget, where that ends up going. And I think that if you highlight that this is their money that we're spending, you'll get them to respond. I'd like to basically survey which of these services have you used before, which of these do you depend on, which of these do you really appreciate having on campus, and then which of these do you not use, have you never heard of before. One, just to educate people about where their money goes, but also to get information on the usage that these, or the services that, and how much they're used, the MSA auxiliaries.
And then I think for the mental health, something that we're targeting at least is a platform that's actually available, Summer Welcome. So we've both been through Summer Welcome, everyone goes through Summer Welcome, and from what I recall at Summer Welcome, there was a lot of education towards sexual assault and through being respectful for your opposite partner. But I don't really recall much about mental health and education of mental health. So that's something that we would look to put into action right away after election and turn it around so that we can tackle the stigmas, but also overcome the ignorance that is readily available with mental health.
Okay. And then with the promotion of sustainability, how do you plan on getting individuals to like actually sort out like their paper and their bottles and just recycle more?
Yeah, that's certainly, there was a report released, and I don't remember from what organization it was, but it was like the recycling rate at Mizzou is fairly bad, and I think we have taken steps to that, where you have recycling bins and trash cans like all over campus, and it clearly says on them. So I'm not entirely sure how we would try and get individuals, but certainly organizations like Campus Dining Services. From what I've read, that only the Rollins Dining Hall composts like what's left on students' plates. And certainly there are multiple other dining halls, and if we could expand the composting program, whether that's working with Bradford Farms, working with the Columbia Center for Urban Agriculture, just wasting less, and sending less to a landfill and putting it towards a more productive purpose.
Okay, and moving a little bit away from your saying on from your platform to your campaign slogan is Mizzou for you. So why did you decide to run under this slogan?
Well, since the primary issue that we were trying to tackle was getting more student involvement in MSA, getting more of their opinion heard, we were wanting to highlight that by getting more student involvement, by getting more information about what they want, we'll be better able to make this a Mizzou, that works for you, a Mizzou that's for you, where, you as the entire student body, whether it's, someone who has their college paid for, someone that's working 3 jobs trying to just pay the bill at the end of the semester, or, like the vast majority of us, someone that's in between there.
Okay. So how important is that representation of all groups to you, and then how do you plan on making sure that no voice is left out?
Yeah, so I think making sure that everyone's voice is heard is very important. I think that's a cornerstone of our campaign, because we don't want to ignore the people who, aren't necessarily involved, like really involved on campus. Maybe they're just here to take their classes, work a job, and then go home. And they're still certainly a part of this campus. Transfer students who have come in, to use Mizzou's the new land grant program to utilize that. They are still an important part of this campus, and so we want to have good communication with all groups on campus, with the individual students, not just the organizations that they may or may not be a part of. And I think if we, really communicate with the individual students, that's how we'll make sure that we hear from everyone on campus.
Okay. So just one quick last question to finish up this interview. So regardless of how this election turns out, what would you like the student body just to know?
I'd like the student body to just know a little bit more about MSA, be a little bit more aware. Like I said, the most common response that I heard was that they didn't know what MSA was. They didn't know that there was a student government that was representing them, that they were paying into, that was providing services for them. So, win or lose, if we get more people on campus to realize that they have a student government, that there are resources they can use, programs that they can be a part of, then I'll feel like we have accomplished something.
I think a lot of times change starts from within. So even if we don't follow through with our election and win, at least people will have seen what we value at campus, at Mizzou, and maybe they may be able to implement some of this in their own lives, be it from sustainability to pursuing opportunities to improve their own mental health.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on and having this interview.
Well,
Thank
thank
you
you for having us.